All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining our Alignable Microsoft Productivity Power Hour for November 5th. We have these power hours every Tuesday of, every first Tuesday of the month. And we started them in September. Next slide. Just to give you a, overview of what this group is about. We'll be covering topics such as Microsoft and Office 365, Microsoft's OneDrive for Business, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Office, Microsoft Forms, Power Apps, Power Automate, and probably even get into some Power BI. And our sessions will be dedicated or catered to end users and business owners. But also we'll do some sessions for the citizen developer. So learning out how to do some no code, low code applications and automations. These will be monthly sessions where we'll have demo and Q&A. All right, so moving on. So to introduce myself, I am going to be the co-speaker and co-host today with my colleague, husband, and co-CEO, Harry Carter. So to introduce myself, I'm co-CEO of NTC Tech. I'm on a few Microsoft boards, such as Microsoft Global Initiative, Community Initiatives, leading up a region. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Copilot, M365 Copilot in SharePoint. And then you can see all the rest of my street cred on this slide. Next slide. Oh, and I have over 20 years of experience. And then my co-CEO, Harry Carter, also on a bunch of boards with me as well. I forgot to mention that we also have a tech community called the Nancy Tech that we also run. He has over 10 years of experience, and you can see his street cred on this slide as well. All right. Love it if you could have your cameras on, just, it's not mandatory, but just while we're doing the instructing or during our talks, we'd love to see your face. So if it gets a little scrunched or, we could see if you might be getting confused or you might need us to slow down. But it's not mandatory, so you can keep your screen on or off however you please. But please remember to use the chat window whenever you have questions. There will be a question and answer period at the end. But as you have your question, please put it in the chat window so you don't forget what your question is. We will be monitoring the chat. All right, next slide. Okay, about to get into this, but before we do, we got to give a cloud disclaimer. We're going to be talking about Microsoft technology. Well, namely, we're going to be talking about cloud technology that Microsoft is running. Just like any cloud technology is constantly being updated. So we try to keep our slides and everything up to date, but at times they could change it. Like they could literally change it while we're doing this session. Hopefully they don't, but they could literally do that. And I have had that experience. So please excuse any inconsistencies between our slides or the current portal or how we're teaching something if we happen to fumble around for a minute trying to find where they moved the button, because as I said, the cloud does constantly change. All right, next slide. Okay, so today we're going to be getting into SharePoint. That's today's topic for this month. We've already had a presentation previously on an overview of Office 365 and an overview on Teams. So now we're going to do an overview on SharePoint. All of these will be available on our YouTube channels. So if you miss it, you can always go back, or if you miss something, you can always go back and rewatch these. But I'll let Harry go ahead and take it away. Oh, I forgot to mention the outline. So we're going to be introducing SharePoint. We'll look at SharePoint in the different industries and sectors, from healthcare to education to financial, manufacturing. I'm going to do a demo, and then we'll look at some best practices, future trends, and we'll also have some recommendations and some takeaways for you. Okay, so now I hand it over to Harry. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nakia. Great intro. SharePoint is a web-based collaboration platform that allows us to manage documents, share information, collaborate on projects. Its key features and capabilities include document management, workflow automation, enterprise search, and business intelligence. It's a versatile platform that can be customized to meet the unique needs of any organization. It can be used for everything from document management, team collaboration, to business intelligence and workflow automation. SharePoint has a wide range of features and capabilities to make it a valuable tool for organizations of all sizes. Implementing a robust document management system can provide numerous benefits to organizations, include improving collaboration, productivity, streamlined documentations, handling, enhanced security, compliance, and increased efficiencies and cost savings. Now we're going to get into how different industries use SharePoint. For instance, healthcare organizations can benefit from comprehensive data management systems enable efficiencies, handles of patient data, facilitates collaboration, research development, ensures regulatory compliance and data security. Excuse me. Streamlining management of patients' data and records, allowing healthcare providers to securely store, share, and access patients' information from any device. A collaborative platform can greatly enhance research and development in healthcare, allowing research to securely share data, insights in real time, fostering a more effective and connected environment. SharePoint can help with healthcare organizations complying with regulatory requirements, maintaining the security and confidentiality of patients' data and records. SharePoint in education and educational institutes can benefit from SharePoint collaborative in learning management system, the LMS, students and faculty collaborating in document management and distribution. A robust content management platform can be used as a learning management system to organize course materials, enable effective student teaching communication, and monitor students' progress and performance. SharePoint can facilitate collaborations between students and faculty, allowing them to share resources, communicate effectively, and work together on projects. Educational institutions can benefit from a centralized document management platform to secure, organize, and distribute materials such as course content, faculty policies, student records, ensuring streamlined access and compliance. In the financial industries, services firm can benefit from SharePoint, secure document storage, sharing, regulatory compliance, and audits, and clients' communications and collaboratorial capabilities. Financial services firms can use a secure document management platform to store, share sensitive documents such as contracts, compliance reports, financial statements, and organize and compliant management. A comprehensive document management and tracking system can assist financial services firms in meeting regulatory requirements and prepare for audits, ensuring organized record keeping and compliance. SharePoint can facilitate communications, collaborations between financial services firms and their client, allowing them to securely share information and work together on projects. It also serves the manufacturing industry. Manufacturing companies can benefit from these collaboratory systems in supply chains, vendors management, product design, development collaboration, and quality control and compliance documentation. Manufacturers can use a centralized platform to provide supply chains, vendor management by tracking inventory, optimizing process procedures, and enhance communications and collaboration with suppliers. Collaboration between design teams, engineers, stakeholders can be enhanced by providing platform for sharing product specification, specific, specification, tracking, development, progress, and management product life cycles. SharePoint can help manufacturers ensure quality control compliance with regulatory requirements by providing document management tracking capabilities. It's even good in church organizations. SharePoint is a powerful tool that can help churches manage their resources process more effectively by providing a centralized location for shared documents, information, as well as tools for communication, collaboration. SharePoint can help churches improve their efficiencies of their operations and better serve other communities. Manage, Managing audience at churches, services, and events can be challenging, especially for larger congregations. A centralized digital platform can simplify attendance, tracking, data management, while also providing communication and collaboration tools for leaders and volunteers. By leveraging automation, churches can streamline processes like data entry, record keeping, saving valuable time and effort for the staff. Effective communication is essential for any organization, and churches are no exception. Using a digital platform facilitating communication, collaboration between members, staff, and volunteers can help churches build stronger relationships and better serve their communities. Document management automation features can also streamline processes like sending out announcements, bulletins, saving valuable time and efforts for the staff. Now that we went through some of the industries and how it can be used in some of the industry, we're going to go to the platform and do a demo on how this platform can work for you.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to look at SharePoint in a live manner. Okay, let's see. Okay, I believe you all can share, can see my screen now. Okay, all right. All right, so before we get into actually looking at what this is, and I'm going to show you a few different things here, just going to give you a little bit of more explanation onto SharePoint. So, you know, there's a couple of different flavors of SharePoint. There's SharePoint Online and there's SharePoint on premises. SharePoint Online, of course, is in the cloud, and that's the one that we're going to be focused on today. But there's also SharePoint on-prem. There's a few different variations of that. There's the license levels as well as the year on which that level of SharePoint was created. So there's SharePoint from 2003, which is decommissioned, 2007, 2010, also decommissioned, probably 2013 too. I think the ones that are out there now are 2016 and 2019 SharePoint, and there has not been any word from Microsoft that they're going to create another on-prem version. So we'll see if they create another on-prem version or if SharePoint goes completely online. Now, because we're using SharePoint Online, the first thing you can do is go log into your Office 365 account. How you do that, you go to office.com, you put in your email address and your password, and it will take you to your homepage in SharePoint. Your homepage in Office 365, which looks something like this, where you have documents and, you know, your search bar and other things that we broke down in our first video or in our first session. So if you really need an overview of Office 365 again, please make sure you check out that first session. We talk about licensing and more about across the homepage of M365. Whoopsie. The homepage of M365, as well as going into more details. So it's just refreshing itself. Okay. But once you get into the platform, you go to the three dots and you go to SharePoint. And this first place that it takes you to is what's called the SharePoint Home. Now, this SharePoint Home is always available to you if you go click on that waffle, click on the SharePoint icon, or you click on the SharePoint icon anywhere that you happen to be in SharePoint, and I'll show you that. But on this SharePoint homepage, it's a landing page that helps you to understand, all the all of the sites that you've gone to recently, news from the different sites that you may be a part of. So the different sites that you've gone to frequently. You can also favorite sites by clicking the little star on this page. There's also a way to favorite and follow sites when we get into the actual SharePoint page, which I'll show you. But once you do that, they also show up under the following section. And then you also have this recent section. Now, recent isn't the same as frequent. Frequent means you went in there a lot. Recent means you went in there recently, just went in there a little while ago. So this can change, and these can change based on your habits. But what you're following and any featured links that you may put here, those featured links can be links outside of Office 365 entirely, or outside of SharePoint entirely. So they're not limited to this, just what's in the suite. You could put any links here that you like, but these are the only two that would stay consistent. These two could potentially change based on things that are happening. Same thing with news. You could get a bunch of news that ends up coming up from a bunch of sites that you're a part of, or you might not have so much news. But you could pick from any of these sites, or you could also just use the URL for the site that you want to go to. And then once you go to it, if you're not signed in, it will prompt you to sign in. Okay. Now, SharePoint is permission-based, so you may not have access to everything that is available in your SharePoint environment, unless you're maybe the SharePoint admin or the owner of the Office 365 environment. Then, of course, you'll be able to get into basically everything, or there's ways for you to get into everything, even if you don't have access initially. Oops. Okay. All right. So now if I wanted to choose a site, like any site, let's just, I'm just going to choose this site to go to, which I already have open, but just to let you see how it opens the site for me, whatever site that I happen to choose. Now, SharePoint is highly customizable in the look and feel that you could have. So we have this site, and just to give you a couple of different looks and feels, there's another site that's a little bit more plain. A little bit more plain here as well. Site with a little bit more pictures and stuff, but oriented a bit differently. So you can see how SharePoint could look different depending on what department, which part of the intranet you're setting up this intranet site for. Like if it's for a department, if it's for a project, if it's for a company, if it's partner portal, if it's portals for your customers, if it's portals for volunteers or sponsors that you happen to have. If you're a nonprofit, they could be set in so many different ways and have so many different colors and branding and pictures, and the design can just, be different for any of those things that you want to be working on, or whoever you happen to be working with and sharing the site with. So I'm going to start in this site and show you, because it's the most colorful one. I think I like this layout. It's it's got pretty pictures and the big pictures and everything. So we'll stay in this site. This site has, so just to start off, every site has its home page, but you can have multiple pages for a site. So if you wanted to have, a page for leadership and a page for regular staff, as well as the home page, you can have that and have each of those pages permissioned so that only the people that should be seeing those pages are the only people that can see them. So SharePoint is very customizable permission-wise as well. But if you look at this page, and we're just going to explore some of the things that we see here. We have the SharePoint bar, which is kind of like the Office 365 suite bar, except for now it says SharePoint up here. And like I said, if I were to click on this SharePoint button right here, it would take me back to the SharePoint homepage that we saw earlier. We also have the search, which we'll talk about. We have the search for sites. We have the search for lists and libraries. So we'll also get into that. We have our help, our feedback and support. Now, this thing is great for submitting feedback for Microsoft to Microsoft, giving them a compliment. Hey, I really love this feature. Please don't change it. Giving them feedback. Hey, this feature really sucks. Please change it right now. Uh, if you ever give a suggestion, especially suggestions, the things that you want them to change, there's a couple of rules here, just in case you want to use this. It has to be voted up, and you have to have enough detail. Okay. So, of course, you want to make sure you have as much detail as possible. Answer the what, who, when, where, how to the best of your ability. Where was this thing at that you're talking about? What are the things that you are saying that suck or aren't that great? What are the things that you're saying how you say do you want it to improve? Give as much detail as possible. So if they do choose your idea and they do implement it, they have enough details to go on. But the other thing is that your feedback has to be upvoted by at least 50 people. And you go to user voice in order to do that. You just share that link and folks can upload, do their little thumbs up and upvote your idea. But there's always people always looking as well, uploading their own ideas as well as looking at other people's ideas to upvote. So if you get 50 upvotes, then Microsoft will actually come and look at your idea and look at how they could possibly implement it. And that's how the cloud just keeps on changing, because they do take those feedback items seriously, and they do implement customer feedback often. All right, so there's that. There's the gear, which you normally see the gear just about everywhere you go in Office 365, but it can change, and it does change here. We're getting options for SharePoint instead of options for Office 365 or options for something else. Then we have the help and support. So this is where the support is, sorry. The help, it gives you some things that it thinks that you might want to go look at, like maybe you're just getting started. Maybe you want to check that out. Maybe you're trying to think about permissions and sharing. Sorry, I don't know why the colors is off here like that. But maybe you want to learn more about permissions and sharing and how SharePoint works with the permissions. You can look for that. You can also search the help. You can explore some different things like learn about team sites, and there's some featured topics down here as well. And then there's your personage. It doesn't really have a name. I just always call it your personage. But you could change your picture here just by hovering over this picture. So you might have like the little bot person. You can change it to your actual picture by clicking that button. You can view your account, which would be your Office 365 account, your licensing, what types of background settings that you have for Office 365. And then you have your M365 profile, which is like your name, your email address, what kind of skills you have, those types of things that you might want to share with others, so that when they're doing a search for people, they can see, oh, there's Susan that works in the IT department, and I'm looking for somebody that does SharePoint. Susan knows SharePoint because it's in her profile. So that type of thing, you can actually search for people as well. So that's where you would change your profile around or view what you have in your profile there. Now let's go into the page more itself. You have the header. So sometimes you might have a header, but certain sites you might not have a header. It might just be, the title of the site. This title of the site may be clickable. So if you're in a different part of the site, like you're not on the home page and you click on the words for the site, it actually brings you back to the site's homepage. So that's how you get back to the homepage of the site, no matter where you happen to be in the site. And then you have navigation. Most of the time, the navigation is going to be up here, or up here, or both places. So normally the navigation up here would be something like other sites inside of your SharePoint intranet. But it could be places that go outside of Office 365 entirely. But usually that's where those things are. And then usually here is the things inside of your site. But again, it could go to somewhere else in SharePoint. There could be a link there that goes to just a document. There could be a link there that goes to a website outside of SharePoint in Office 365 entirely. But normally what is here, it's what's inside the site. Now, if I go down the page, now because I have certain permission, I have buttons that you may or may not see, like these buttons for editing and publishing the page. Now, you might not see those buttons if you don't have that type of access, but not to worry, you could still just use the page. These blocks for this is called a web part. This web part has a specific name called a hero web part. And basically, usually it's either used for pictorial reasons so that you have a nice pictorial header, but they could also have links behind them. We don't have links behind these, so I'm not going to click on any of them, but they could potentially have links and go to specific places. Move that over a little bit. Okay. There's other things that other web parts that could be on the page, like quick links, like a web part for the calendar. So if you have a calendar inside of your intranet site, you can keep track of whatever type of events that you're keeping track of for that department or project or whatever the site was set up for. You can have things like document libraries and lists that have parts that you could put on the page as well. So if folks are visiting this document library a lot, you might want to have it on the home page so that people can get into it easily. You can have a news where folks are posting like news posts, things that are happening around the company, things that are happening in the company's industry, things that the company cares about. So different types of posts can be put here. Even like, say the leaderships, like the CEO corner or the leadership, I don't know, the leadership comms group. I don't know. But, you know, being able to share information through a pretty method, because these things can also have the header and then they have the page where you can also add parts into it as well. So you can make a really interesting looking news post, or you can make news posts that are pretty plain. It depends on how you want to handle that. You can also have parts for things like people that are a part of the team or a part of a certain team and conversations. And on these pages, you could also have people comment on the page. Depends on how the page was set up. But these are some of the things that could be seen on the different SharePoint pages that you see. Now, we're going to go into a little bit more and talk about navigation and then searching. And then we'll actually go a bit more deeper as well. So continuing on, when you navigate around in SharePoint, there's a couple of different things that you can do. Now, there's links all over the place. You know, there's the navigation. There's navigation that could be up here. You could click on that to get us back to the SharePoint homepage. There's links on the page that can navigate you to different things. So you have those options of, you know, clicking on different links or clicking on navigation. The navigation normally stays no matter where you are. So it's like, say, for example, I go into one of these lists. Notice how the navigation up here is still here. This hub navigation and this navigation right here, they remain no matter where I am. But I could also click back on like a link to take me back to the home page. You could also use the back and forward buttons. Now, if you use the backwards and forwards buttons, remember that this is browser based. And sometimes the browser you may land on a cached page as opposed to the actual page. So when you use the back button, first of all, I would highly recommend that you use anything else but the back button, but there are times where you have to use the back button. If you have to use the back button, just refresh the page when you go back, just to make sure you're looking at an active, real page, not a cached page, and now you're looking at old content. Most of the time it does refresh, but just as a best practice, it's good to do that. Now let's talk about searching, but we're going to talk about searching from the site level, because we also, once we get into the lists and libraries, if I can move this thing, I guess it won't let me move it. Crap. Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, I got it to move. So we're going to talk searching the site. And then when we get into talking about the lists and libraries, we'll also look at searching the list or the library. So right now we're going to search the site. Now, when I click in the box, Now, there used to be, when you just clicked in the box, a drop down that'll show you some of the recent things that you worked on or some of the things that thinks you want to get to because you've been in it a lot. But they stopped doing that. So I guess somebody gave a suggestion to take that away. It may come back, but you have the ability to just start typing anything in here. And oh, it's not doing it this time. I'm on the right site. Let me just make sure. Yes, I am on the right site. Okay. Usually when you start typing, it'll give you, some things that are starting with what you started typing. Usually about 3 letters. It did it earlier. I saw the document come up. This time it's not showing it. Of course, I think I probably forgot to give the demo gods their just due before I started this demo, but hopefully they don't start like penalizing me really heavily. Anyway, you have your options in the list. You also have the show more results here where you could click on it and it takes you to the search page. Now, it doesn't show anything, even though there are things here because it's doing a literal search for DOC. I can use the same search things that wildcards, like the asterisk for saying anything with DOC and then any other letters after that. That's a wildcard. I could use the and or and not as well that you would use for Google searching or Bing searching. Just remember, if you use and or not, they have to be in all caps, all capital letters, AND, all caps, OR, all caps. Okay. So if I change this to this, and then I do another search, I'm going to get quite a bit of stuff. Okay. And that's because I used the wildcard this time to say, hey, I'm looking for something. It's kind of like this name, but I might not be exactly sure what exactly it is. Or it didn't come up in my initial search. So now I'm going to use a wildcard to help more results come up. When you use that type of searching, or any type of searching, if there's a match for that term or that phrase, because you could use quotes as well. You can't use single quotes, but you can put whole phrases in double quotes like you can do in regular searching. It searches everywhere in everything. What I mean by that, as you can see, this is a site, and this is like something on the page. It has the word documents in it, so it's pointing it out. This is a I can't really tell what that is. Oh, this is in the content tracker, but I don't know why it's pointing this one out. Actually, it must have document in there somewhere or doc in there somewhere. This one has the word, since it's a document library, it has that in there. So it has it in the path name document. So it's going to be looking in like the URL. It's going to look in the documents. It's going to look in the libraries. It's going to look through all the columns. It's going to look at all the views. It's going to look at all the pages, and it's going to give me back everything that matches that. Of course, you can filter down by using these big filters here. Like if I'm just looking for file or a site, files or different sites or news, or I know it's images, then I can do that. I also have these little filters here depending on where I am. So under all, I have, a couple of filters like the file type. If I know it was a PowerPoint presentation, if I know when it was last modified. Oh, wait a minute, not there. As opposed to if I go to sites, I don't really have any filters. So it depends on where you're at. If I go to images, I would have some, but depends on which big filter you're using. You might also have some small filters to use. Now, how I get back is to click on this arrow key, and that will take me back to the home page, or I could have just clicked on the Miriam Graham, and it would have took me back as well. All right. So we just talked about searching, navigating, all of that fun stuff, the home page, the search for inside of the site. Now we're going to start looking at our lists and libraries. Now, lists and libraries are those containers that contain the files and the data that we're holding. So a list contains what's called items. Each item is a row. And you want to think of a list as like a spreadsheet. So a spreadsheet holds nothing but data. Data could be different types of data, like it could be choice or it could be, okay, why are you taking so long? It could be choice or it could be like a open text field or something like that. So you could have a bunch of different uh, choices, or you could just be inputting numbers or text or whatever. But actually, this one doesn't have anything in it. Let's go to the asset manager. I clicked on the wrong one. I think that's the one that I wanted to go to. Okay, yes, this is the one I wanted to go to. So each of these things is an item. Each line is an item. So think of line item in your spreadsheet, same thing. It has rows and columns, just like in a spreadsheet. And they can be created, these lists can be created whole cloth, meaning completely custom based off of a spreadsheet or spreadsheets that you have. You can actually transfer that data into an online environment for multiple people to be able to work on it at the same time, as well as being able to do other things like having pictures in your lists, or other things like color coordination and things like that. Making the list more accessible and easier for folks to work on it together. Or you can use some of the templates, because there's a bunch of templates that Microsoft has that you could also use as a starter. The library, on the other hand, and let me go back to the home. Okay. The library, on the other hand, where the list is focused on the data. So when you click on that new button, it asks you for, to fill out this field, fill out that field, filling out all the fields that will become that row of data in the list. A library is a little bit different in that it cares about the document or the file that is getting put there. So when you click on the new here, you get all these options as opposed to, let me go back into the asset manager. I'll just open it in a new tab. As opposed to when you click new here, it opens up a form for you to fill in all of the pieces of data that ends up in that row for that item. So a little bit different. Oh, but here in a list, you can attach items. You can attach files. I'm sorry. You can attach files to an item, multiple files if you like. But it would be best if you're using files to start in a document library and add additional columns, because you can add columns and have as many columns as you want. Add those columns to the document library. Now, the reason why you want to do that is because migration of those files out of the attachment state on the list is a nightmare. Okay, it is really hard to get those files out and to get them back switched around so they can be archived somewhere with the appropriate metadata tags and everything like that. It's best to just use the library and then attach the metadata to it like that, instead of trying to attach files to a list item and then later trying to get all of that stuff back out. Plus, it's hard to see them without going into the item, then go into each attachment. Here, you could just go into each document as you see fit. So I'll give an example where it's most of the time, this is best practice not to avoid that. Don't put attachments on line items in a list. But there are times where it might be okay to do that. So say, for example, this is a calendar, and this is a calendar for your company's events. You're about to have a company picnic. So there's a flyer attached to the item. No one's going to want to archive the flyer later. I mean, most likely, nobody's going to want to archive the flyer later. So, for things that don't really mean things in a long-term sense, attaching it to an item, not so bad. But for the most part, you're going to want to do something with those files later. You're going to need to archive them. You're going to need to delete, modify, whatever you need to do with them. It's harder to do them when they're attached to a list item. So you use the document library. So in the document library, like I said, you have the ability to create new files And you have the ability to upload files. So it does take different file types other than just Office files. You can upload pictures, video. Um, People have uploaded like CAD drawings and, you know, schematics and things like that. So it doesn't really matter if it's not an Office document, but you do have the ability to use the Office web apps if you need to use the Office web apps. So let's look at one of these. Each of these web apps allows you to use this Office type in the browser and be able to create the document, edit it, and modify it. Well, modifying is editing it, but create the document, modify it, and also you could delete it as well. So I'm going to create a new document. It's of course called document one because there's already a document called document in here. I'm in dark mode. Hopefully you guys are okay with that because I can't remember how to get it out of light mode. I'd have to do a search real quick. But if it is not, if you can't see it too well, just let me know. I'm looking at faces. I don't see anybody scrunched up. So I think everybody's good. Okay. All right. So in this document, like I said, it's a fresh new document. I just created it. I can rename it by clicking on this this section right here and rename it to something else. So if I wanted to name it test with test doc, I could rename it. This cloud right here also turns into the little arrows that you saw, letting you know that it is saving it as I do things. So don't worry about hitting the save button. It automatically saves it and you're in the browser. But even in the browser, you have most of the capabilities that you have through the desktop version. Now, I prefer the desktop version, so I always come over here and I go to editing and then I open it in the desktop. But you don't have to. You could use the browser version if you like the browser version. You can also make a few changes here, like how you want to interact with this document. If you want it to stay open for editing, or if you just happen to be reviewing the document and you want to make sure you do not make any changes to this document by mistake, you could change it to reviewing or changing it to view, just in case you just wanted to view it, or viewing it, reviewing if you want to add comments and suggestions for changes without modifying the document itself. So kind of a little fail safe right there. This catch up button just lets you know what changed in the document. Now there's no changes because this is a fresh new document, but this is also how I can look at version history. And we'll look at version history a little bit deeper in a little bit. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to probably cut a little bit of stuff out that I was going to talk about since we're getting down to the wire here. And I want to make sure we have at least 5 minutes for questions. This comments allows me to do comments. And then, like I said, there for the tabs, most of these things and dang, what's this thing called? Tabs and the ribbon. Most of the things that you want are here, including track changes, which wasn't here before. So we have most of the capabilities that you want. Oh, here it is. There's dark mode. Most of the capabilities that you want, including changing the view for dark mode and light mode right there. So I found where the button is now. There's also the file, and this file will take you back to Office 2003, if y'all remember Office 2003 with the drop downs. But this is the only one that doesn't have the ribbon or the backstage. So a little bit different look and feel, but the ability to get to all the file options are here. All right. Now, how I get out of this document, it opened it in a new tab. So all I have to do is close the tab to get out of the document. And it'll take me back to my previous tab that I was on, which was the tab with all of the folders and the documents. Now, you do have the ability to add folders, and you can make the different folders different colors. Now, I really don't like folders, and folders aren't really a good practice in the long run. I think about how many times you've had folders and you're trying to figure out where the heck did I put that document? Was it in this folder? Was it in that folder? And you go into a folder and you're like, crap, there's 5 folders in here. Was it in that folder? Oh, was it in this folder? And then imagine working with other people and then they're putting stuff in folders. I think it goes in that folder. No, it don't. It was supposed to be in the folder over there somewhere. But now you got two versions of things and two people or groups of people working on two versions of the document. And then you're trying to bring it together and you're like, now what are we going to do? Now we got, this big mess of versions. So I like to use what's called grouping. Grouping is a thing that you can do in a view. We won't have enough time to go through it today. But there is a way for you to actually, it's not in the view, but there's a way for you to, oh, it's not showing it here. Usually in this drop down, there could be a thing for grouping, and then you could choose to group it by that column. And then that gives you that kind of way that you can collapse things down so that you only see the folder type view, but then you can expand it so you can see everything's in there. And that way it kind of helps with, making mistakes. This library also has search. So kind of the same thing. Oh, and see how when I first clicked in, it did start giving me some stuff. And this time when I started typing, it started giving me some stuff in the list. So you may see this, like I was saying before, you may not, depending on how it's working and how things are changing. But the search page, when I click enter, doesn't take me out of the list or library that I'm searching in. And yes, you can do the same search in lists. List also has a search bar. Remember your wildcards if you don't get anything. Don't panic, because sometimes you might be like, it is in there. I know it's there. But it's just the system is going for the specifics, and you need to maybe put a wild card on it or something like that to help bring up some more options. Okay, so let me get out of this. All right. Just checking my list to make sure. Oh, a couple more things I want to make sure y'all know about is, let's see, let me give myself about 7 more minutes. Filtering and alerts and the views. Now there's these things called views. They're on lists and libraries. So no matter which one you're on, you will always have the view. They're over here on this side. There's going to be some lists. There's some views that will be baked into the list or library that you happen to be in. But you could also create your own views. Now, again, we don't have enough time to show how you can create your own personal views, but there is a way for you to do that. But these views give the documents actually, let me use this one. Okay, so where the view? Okay. It gives it gives different looks to the items that are here. Let's see, asset gallery. There we go. So you may have some different views that are baked into the list or library that you're working in, and then you could have some views that you could create yourself that shows specific types of data. Maybe it's filtering the data down to only a certain subset that you want to see. Maybe it has grouping in it because you don't like folders. There's a way to get rid of folders if other people are using folders. Things like that. Let me go back to this thing again because I forgot which one this one is. I think it's maybe the all items, but okay. Now let's talk about filtering and then alerts, and then we'll go into the end part and then go into questions. So actually, I'll give myself like 2 more minutes. But filtering is the ability to click on one of the drop downs on any of the columns, even in the library, you can do this. And depending on the column type, you'll get different choices. Remember how I said the grouping may be there? So here's the group by status. So if I wanted to group everything, so here's everything that's available, everything that's in repair, everything that's in use, everything that's retired. And you see how you can collapse and expand things and how that can make it easier when you're dealing with files. You want the kind of folder type look, but you don't want everybody to get confused about where things are. You also have the ability to sort alphabetically. You could use the filter. So the filter by, like say, for example, I only want to see those that are available and those that are in use. And that filters my list down. And I can filter by multiple things. So if I only wanted to see those available and in use, and maybe filter it also by those things that are yellow. So you could filter down your list and get, filter your results down to a smaller subset. Last thing I'm going to talk about is alerts. So there's two types of alerts. There's alerts on the item or the file, and there's alerts on the library or list itself. If you use the alert me up here on the action bar, this will be to the list or library. When you click on it, it gives you a form where you can add other people. Maybe you want to set this alert for just yourself, or maybe you want to add everyone in the organization, which you can use everyone except external users, or maybe just add specific people, and they will be alerted every time something changes, or all new items are added, or existing items or things are deleted. Also, if anything changes, or if someone changes an item, or someone else changes an item created by me, or last modified. So these are the options that you get. You also get the ability to say, I want the notification sent immediately every time something changes, or whatever these up here say, or give me a daily summary at a certain time, or give me a weekly summary at a certain time and day. Same thing as for the items, but the way it works for the items or the file is you go to the item line or the file line itself, click on the three dots. Under the three dots, there is alert me. The page is a little bit different that you get. And that you don't have that all changes, all new items, modified items, or deleted items. You just get these types of alerts, and the ability for when you want it to be sent and who you want it to send to. The delivery method for all of these things is always grayed out, so don't worry about this section. And for the title, I highly, highly recommend you never change this, because there's a way for you to manage your alerts. And if you go back to an alert that you're trying to change, maybe you need to remove somebody's name off of it. If you change the title, you might not remember where that alert is connected to. This title is actually telling you it's the Asset Manager Library, and it's this item. So you know that it's attached to this certain thing. So I would not change that. Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit greedy here. One last thing. One last thing that I want to show you, and that is, even though this really doesn't have any versions on it, is the version history. You could click the drop down next to any of the files. So I'm back in a library right now, any of the files, and you can click on the version history. Now, the most powerful thing about, one of the most powerful things about the library in SharePoint is that instead of making multiple documents, this is document V1, this is V2, this is V1.2, this is V2 test, this is Nikki's version of everybody else's document. You can just put your changes in the same document. And then whenever you need to see the version history, or you might need to roll back to a previous version, you have the ability to do so through the version history of each item. And you would just go to the three dots. That's the easiest way. And then click on version history. Then you would see all the version history for that document. You might have the ability to delete versions. You may not, but you usually would have the ability to at least view, although you might not have the ability to restore, depending on your level of permission. Okay. All right. So that's all we have time for. I have so much more that I could have shown you, but we still got to close out, and I want to give you some more, give you some time, hopefully, to ask questions. So Harry, I know you're going to go back to the presentation, so I'll go ahead and take it away.
Hold on. Before you disconnect, I need you to get just a tad bit more greedy. Could you show us the permission structures that can be put in around the files and the sites?
The permission, so around the sites, it would be under, you go to the gear, and then there's site permissions. And this is the short version of seeing who may have access and at what level. Like Harry's the site owner, he has full control. But you can also go to these advanced permissions. Now I'm old school, so I like going to this place better. where I can see the different groups and I can see who's in the group by clicking on it. I can also see, nobody's in this group though. And this is one of those places where you do have to use the back button. If you click on the group, you do have to click the back button to go back. So let me refresh the screen, make sure I'm on a fresh screen. You can also see what these groups of people have their permission levels, and you can add people into groups, which is the better, cleaner practice, or you can add individuals and give them individual permission. That can become a nightmare if you're adding individuals into every individual thing to try to manage the permissions. So it's better to use groups, and it's better to permission the least amount of things that you can permission. But you can permission even down to, so going to a list, going back to the document library, that'll be a little bit better. Go to the document library, but you have permissions also on list items as well. If you go to the three dots and where are the, I think it's under details. Oh yeah, okay. So
Manage
you go
access.
to details, yeah. And there's the manage access where I can see who has access to this document, at what level, what types of groups have access to the document, and any links that I might have shared out. Now, if you share links, I highly suggest you use expiration on those links, especially if you're sharing those links to people external to your organization. There may be option for you to change or add an expiration date. And that way, that person doesn't have access to the stuff forever, even though they only have access to the one thing. But it's better to time those things out for security precautions. Okay. All right. Good
Thank
now?
you for that, Nikki. Yes.
All right.
All right. Can you see my screen? All right. So best practices. To effectively implement SharePoint, organizations should follow best practices such as define clear objectives, establish governance through policies, provide adequate training and resources. Emerging trends in SharePoint uses include increased use of cloud-based solutions, integrations with other tools, systems, and enhanced mobile capabilities. To effectively implement a collaborative platform, organizations should define clear objectives and requirements, establish governance policy, provide adequate training resources, and continually monitoring and evaluating its usage. Platforms can be integrated with other tools and systems such as Microsoft Teams, Power Apps, Dynamics 365 to enhance collaboration and productivity. Emerging trends in collaborative platforms include an increased use of cloud-based solutions, enhanced mobile capabilities, integration with artificial intelligence, and machine learning technologies. SharePoint is a versatile platform that can help organizations streamline collaboration, manage across wide ranges of industries by leveraging its key features and capabilities. Organizations can provide productivity, efficiently, and cost savings. By following best practice and standing up to date with emerging trends, organizations can stay ahead of the curves and maximize the value of SharePoint. You're on mute.
Yes, I am. Apologies. Thank you. So yeah, now we're going to get into the recommendations part. And I was just answering some of the questions in the chat window. But we'll get to, hopefully we'll have a couple of minutes. I know we're at time right now, but if you all can hang out for a little bit longer, I'll make sure your questions are answered. So our recommendations, next slide. Okay. When you're sharing with teams of people or groups of people, use SharePoint and or Teams. Now, Teams is built on top of SharePoint. So the things that Teams can access, when Teams is created, it creates its own SharePoint site. So anything that's in that SharePoint site, or almost anything, not everything, but certain things can be pulled through and certain things can be accessible easily through the Teams that created the SharePoint site. So you could use one or both, depending on your people's likes and things like that. You might want to sync your libraries to your computer for faster access. The ones that you go in and out a lot of in SharePoint and or Teams. On the action bar, there's a sync button up there. So you can use that to sync it to your computer, and then you can use the files directly from your computer. Use metadata tags, or those columns that we were looking at. Those columns is called that's another way of calling metadata. Metadata means data about data. Columns captures that. Same thing with fields. So you might see people say, you know, the data that's in the field or the metadata. That's what they're referring to. Create alerts to stay informed about the changes and updates that are happening, especially to those documents or items that are very important to you. Use version history to keep track of changes, as opposed to naming documents with V1, V2, you know, this version, that version, whatever. Use co-authoring. So I didn't show you, but in the Word document, when I had it open, if we had enough time, I was going to have Harry actually jump in the document with me so that we could interact in the document. But basically, co-authoring means that you both can get in the document at the same time and work on the document at the same time. Now, there are ways where you can turn that off so that people have to check out the document in order to edit it. But co-authoring is usually a very good practice to use. And when using sharing links, like I said earlier, use the expiration dates to automatically expire your links in a certain time frame. Next slide. Okay. Useful references. So you can just click through these next two slides. These are going to be references in this that you could use to help you on your journey in SharePoint, some training videos, the limitations, how it interacts with OneDrive, and somehow and the guest capabilities, as well as what happens when there's members and owners as well. And some adoption techniques if you happen to be using SharePoint and you're trying to get people to adopt it. Next slide. Okay. Now, questions. Now, we don't have really time to keep the QR code up here, so go to the next slide and I'll just close out. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want a copy of the slides, there's a QR code right there so that you can get a copy of these slides. You can sign up for our newsletter. Let us know which topics that you would like to discuss. If there's other topics that you really want to see in the coming sessions, please use the QR code in the lower right-hand side of the screen. You can set up time with us to talk. You can visit our website and visit us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, let us know. We appreciate the time that you all have given us and the extra time that you've given over. We hope that you've learned a lot. If you have time, I'll open it up for questions, but we understand if you have to leave. But this is the time for folks to come off mute if you like to ask questions. Now, while you're thinking about that, just because these are already in the thing. So someone asked regarding search, when it's done on an organization level, if you search for something that's located in an area where a person doesn't have permission, would they get denied access? Yeah, they'll get denied access, and actually they won't even see it. So if they don't have access to it, it won't even show up in their search results for them to even be tempted to see it. Then there was another question. What are the different pricing levels and number of users? So that's a licensing question. I'd have to get you some of the licensing details. But just to kind of give you an overview, the highest cost for Office 365, I think it's $54 a seat. The lower price point for Office 365 that has most of the stuff included, including SharePoint, I think the lowest price point is $12.50 a seat, unless it's a frontline worker, somebody that's not going to have a full license, but you do need somebody with a full license to have frontline worker licenses. But those are like $4 and $8 a seat. So that kind of gives you an idea on how that cost would be. Now it's per seat, so per person. But there is the ability for you to add guests to your SharePoint and guests to your teams without giving them a license so that you don't have to pay for that extra capability. But it doesn't give them a lot of there's some functions and things they can't do. So there may be things where you ways where you times where you may need to add them, give them an actual seat versus times where giving them guest access is completely fine. And then the number of users, can be just one person. But, of course, SharePoint is for sharing. So, it's best to use it with multiple people. If it's just you, you might want to just use your OneDrive as opposed to SharePoint. Are there space limitations such as those applied to personal accounts of Microsoft? Yes, there are space limitations. So SharePoint has 1 terabyte of space out of the box for you, comes with the system, but you can purchase extra data space. So I think it's $2 per 25 gigabytes or something like that. But 1 terabyte of space is a lot of space. So I highly suggest, if you don't want to spend extra money on that, use a cheaper backup storage method, like backing up your data to like a Carbonite or Azure Blob Storage or something like that, where it's cost less to keep your old stuff and keep all your new, fresh, up to date, working documents in SharePoint. And unless you're using really big files, you probably shouldn't hit that terabyte anytime soon. Another one, can you use views to control users' access? No, you don't use views to control users' access. You use permissions to control users' access. The views are what shows you the data in different types of ways, like maybe certain columns won't show. Maybe you want the data to show up in a more pictorial way as opposed to the list, things like that. That's what the view is for. But you can permission the thing, so the library, the list. So even if the person can get into the site, maybe they're not supposed to get into this one list. You can permission that one list so they can't get into it.
Well, can you permission, what I meant to ask really was, can you permission the view of the list if you don't want them to see certain columns and everything? So you set up a view, or you don't want to see certain items in a list. So can you control the permissions by the view?
Yeah, SharePoint, you can't do that. You can do that in Dataverse. You can share, you can do that type of thing in Dataverse. Now, usually what people would do is they would have like personal views, and then they set up those personal views for specific people so that they have that specific view. Or they give the person access to only certain things, maybe in the list or library, they only need access to kind of give them a little less to look at or a little less to access. But as far as being able to, do that on those columns, no, unfortunately you can't. But there's a way to maybe like duplicate it so that you can have like a one that has all that information in, and another one that doesn't have that information, but is drawing from the other list, so the data stays consistent.
Right. Okay. I mean, I've just done a lot with databases, so views within databases and everything.
Yeah.
The way of limiting what people see.
Yeah, SQL and Oracle and all them. Yeah, they got the extra special abilities to do that. Where SharePoint is kind of a database, it's not a full-blown database like those databases.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Nakia, some of the tasks that you mentioned, from a managed service provider perspective, would you guys take care of a lot of that, even like the control of the permissions and access and so forth? And if someone uploads a particular document that should not, or you want to have the business determine if that should stay as a file uploaded, would you take care of a lot of those particular tasks of that nature?
Yes, we can definitely access. So that's one of the services that we provide. So thank you so much for that question, Randy. I'll give you your $20 later.
Well, I was like, that's a lot of work. I wouldn't,
but
I would the team on that one.
It can definitely be a lot of work. And for those
Okay.
of you that need an IT department but don't want to spend a whole lot of money on it, we do have a subscription-based option where we can do those types of things for you, manage the system for you. You know, when you get new folks, add those people to the system. People need to leave, we make sure they're out of the system, you know, building things for you as you need them, you know, modifying those things as things change. We definitely do all of that as well. So thanks, Randy, for that question. That is our bread and butter besides training. All right. So I don't see any more questions in the window, and it seems like everybody seems to be satisfied looking at faces. All right. So I think we'll go ahead and say adieu until next month. We look forward to seeing you on the first Tuesday of the month, 11 to noon-ish Pacific time. Thank you so much for joining us. Have such a great day and a great rest of your week.